Hello, everyone. This is Jay Coder, and I'm back with another stream here. And today we're going to be adding icons to the application. And so, if you were always curious on how to switch out the app icons for publishing, this is a tutorial for you. So this is going to be an Android tutorial, and stick with me and you'll learn something new. And go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the lesson today. And I'm going to go ahead and mute the music here. And then also, for those of you that want to follow along with the lesson today in the chat, or also I'll post it in the description later. I'm going to post a link so that you all can follow along in the chat. So, all right, I posted the link, and we're going to be going over a code lab that will go over how to change the app icon in an Android app. And so, before you begin, an app icon is an important way to distinguish your app. It also appears in a number of places, including the home screen, all apps screen, and settings app. You may also hear the app icon referred to as a launch icon. Launcher refers to the experience when you hit the home button on an Android device to view and organize your apps and add widgets and shortcuts and more. If you've tried different Android devices, you may have noticed that the launcher experience can look different depending on the device manufacturer. Sometimes device manufacturers will create a custom launcher experience that's signature to their brand. A part of that, different manufacturers may show app icons in a different shape than the circular icon shape shown above. They could display all the app icons in a square shape, rounded, square, or square between a square and a circle. For example, regardless of the shape the device manufacturer choose, the goal is for all the app icons on the single device to have a uniform shape for a more consistent user experience. That's why the Android platform introduced support for adaptive icons as of API level 26. By implementing an adaptive icon for your app will be able to accommodate a large range of devices by displaying a high-quality app icon appropriately. This collab will provide you with image source files for a tip calculator launcher icon to practice with. You will use a tool in Android Studio called Image Asset Studio to generate all versions of the launcher icons needed. Afterward, you can take what you learned and apply it to changing the app icon for other apps. Prerequisites: able to navigate the files of a basic Android project, including the resources file, able to install an Android app from the Android Studio in the emulator or a physical device. Well, you'll learn how to change the launcher icon of an app, how to use Image Asset Studio in Android Studio to generate launcher icon assets, what is an adaptive icon and why it's made up of two layers, and what you'll build: an Android app that has a new launcher icon. What you need: a computer with the latest stable version of Android Studio installed, internet connection to download the image resource files. 2. Set up your project. If you're taking this collab as a part of the Android Basics and Kotlin course, you can directly use the tip calculator from the previous collab that you've already working on. If you're taking this collab on its own outside of the course, you can set up a new project in Android Studio using the empty activity template. That way you don't modify or overwrite launcher icon files in an existing app until you are more comfortable with these steps. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and open an empty activity for today, and that's where we're going to modify our icon. And doesn't want us to name this anything specific. Okay. So it says, all right, so empty activity. So I'll go ahead and name it change icon app. So I'll go ahead and do that here. So, oh, what happened? Oh, I went ahead and press enter, so it's gonna be my application. All right, that's fine. For demonstrational purposes, the name doesn't really matter for this project. So, all right. So now, launcher icons. The goal is for your launcher icon to look fantastic, crisp, and clear, regardless of the device model or screen density. Specifically, screen pixel density refers to how many pixels per inch or DPI dots per inch are on the screen. For a medium density device, MDPI, there are 160 dots per inch on the screen, while an extra high density device has 640 dots per inch on the screen. To account for devices across a range of screen densities, you'll need to provide different versions of your app icon. Explore launcher icon files to see what this looks like. Open up your project in Android Studio. If your app was started from a template, then you should have a default launcher icon that are already provided by Android Studio. In the project window, switch to project view. This will show you the files in your project according to the file structure of how those files are saved on your computer. Navigate to the resources directory, app, source, main, resources, and expand some of the map folders. These map folders are where you should put the launcher icon assets for your Android app. So let's see what they're saying right in this lesson. So let's go ahead and go to our Android Studio, and then it wants us to change the project mode. And then after we change the project mode, it wants us to go to the resources folder. Let's see. So it's at the source. And then it's going to be inside main, and then resources. And then it was saying the MIP map. So this is the launcher icons for each size. Alright, so this is where we'll be replacing the icon. So, alright, so it says navigate to there, and there's a MDPI, HDPI, XHDPI are density qualifiers that you can append onto the name of a resource directory like mimmap to indicate that these are resources for devices of a certain screen density. Here's a list of density qualifiers on Android. Resources for medium density screens 160 dpi. Resources for high density screens 240 dpi. Resources for extra high density screens 320 dpi. Resources for extra high density screens 480. Extra high screens 640. Resources that are not meant to be scaled, regardless of the screen pixel density, no DPI. Resources that scale to any density, any DPI. And also, I'm going to include this link in the chat and also the description about density qualifiers so that you all can be able to do further study on that as well, to just be able to know like the different icon sizes. So I'm gonna go ahead and post that link in the chat really quick. And so above link is about density qualifiers for icons. Alright. And I encourage you all to take a look at that further so that you can expand your knowledge about how that works. And note, you may wonder why launcher icon assets are located in map directories separate from other app assets located in drawable directories. This is because some launchers may display your app icon at a larger size than what it's provided by the device's default density bucket. For example, an HDPI device, a certain device launcher may want to use the XHDPI version of the icon instead. If you click on the image files, you'll see a preview. The IC launcher.png files contains the square version of the icon, while the IC launcher _round.png files contain the circular version of the icon, both provided in each resource directory. For example, this is what resource minmap xxx HDPI IC_launcher round looks like. Also notice the size of the asset in the top right. This image is 192 by 192 in size. On the other hand, this is what res minmap MDPI IC launcher round.png looks like. It's only 48 pixels by 48 pixels in size. As you can see, the minmap image files are composed of a fixed grid of pixels. They were created for a certain screen resolution, hence the quality can degrade as you resize them. If you scale down a bitmap image, it will probably look okay because you are getting rid of pixel information. If you scale up a bitmap image significantly, It may appear blurry because Android will need to guess at and fill in the missing pixel information. Note, to avoid a blurry app icon, be sure to provide different bitmap images for an app icon for each density bucket. Note that device screen density won't be precisely 160 dpi, 240 dpi, 320 dpi, etc. Based on the current screen density, Android will select the resource at the closest, largest density bucket and then scale down. Now that you have some background context on launcher icons, you'll learn about adaptive icons next. And also, this is a good thing for designers to know as well. Usually on enterprise level Android apps, you'll work closely with the designer on these different things, with the icon assets and everything. And usually sometimes you won't even have to worry about this because the all those assets were taken care of long ago if you're working on a already established app. But also this is important to know for brand new apps as well. Adaptive icons for foreground and background layers. As the Android 8 release API level 26, there's support for adaptive launcher icons, which allows for more flexibility and interesting visual effects when it comes to app icons. For developers, that means that your app icon is made up of two layers, a foreground and background layer. In the above example, the white Android icon is the foreground layer, while the blue and white grid in the background is in the background layer. The background layer will be stacked on top of the background. The foreground layer will be stacked on top of the background layer. Then a mask, circular mask, in this case, will be applied on top to produce a circular app icon. Explore adaptive files. Locate at the default adaptive icon files provided by the project template in Android Studio. In the project window of Android Studio, look for and expand out the res minmap any DPI -v26 resource directory. Alright, let's see where that is here in our Android Studio. And alright, that's here, the minmap any DPI v26. Alright, now it says adaptive icons were added in API level 26 of the platform. So the adaptive icon should be declared in a minmap resource directory that has the v26 resource qualifier on it. That means the resources in the directory will only be applied on devices that are running API 26, Android 8, or higher. The resource files in the directory are ignored on devices running older versions of the platform. Open up the XML files, for example, IC underscore launcher XML. You should see this. Alright, so the IC underscore launcher .xml, we should see code similar to that. And so the IC launcher underscore XML. And okay, so we have the background, foreground. This also has a monochrome. Okay. Alright. And then notice how that adaptive icon element is used to declare the background and foreground layers of the app icon by providing resource drawables for each. Go back to the project view and look for where the drawables are declared. Drawable IC launcher background and drawable V24 IC launcher background foreground. I'm sorry. Switch to the design view to see the preview of each background on left, foreground on right. Let's see. So let's go back to the Android Studio, and then here it has references to the background and foreground, and I'm holding command and then I press command and click, and it shows me here, which is the background. And then I'm gonna go back to our previous file, which is here, and then I'm going to go to our foreground file, which is this guy right here. And so they are correct that, you know, there's a foreground, it's split into a foreground and background, because this icon is actually created by code, vector code, which is cool that the art is totally by code and not by manual drawing. But yeah, that's what our icon is composed of right now. And these are both vector drawable files. They don't have a fixed size in pixels. If you switch to code view, you can see the XML declaration for the vector drawables using the vector element. Well, a vector drawable and bitmap image both describe a graphic. There are important differences. A bitmap image doesn't understand much about the image that it holds, except for the color information at each pixel. On the other hand, a vector graphic knows how to draw the shapes that define an image. These instructions are composed of a set of points, lines, and curves, along with color information. The advantage is that a vector graphic can be scaled for any canvas size, for any screen density, without losing quality. A vector drawable is Android's implementation of vector graphics, intended to be flexible enough on mobile devices. You can define them in XML with these possible elements. Instead of providing version of a bitmap asset for density buckets, you only need to define the image once, thus reducing the size of your app and making it easier to maintain. And this link, let me see what this link is. It's the Vector Drawable. Okay, so I'm going to post this in the chat as well. If you want to learn more about vector drawables, which they're pretty cool, because I think it's always cool when an image can be produced by pure code. And it's kind of like combining the world of creativity and artists with the technical aspects and coding. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and post this in the chat here, and the above link is more on vector drawables. Cool. And then there are trade-offs to using a vector drawable versus a bitmap image. For example, icons can be ideal as vector drawables because they are made of simple shapes, while photography would be harder to describe as a series of shapes. It would be more efficient to use a bitmap asset in that case. Now it's time to move on to actually changing the app icon. Let's see what this link is about the trade-offs. It says understanding Android vector image format. Alright, I'll also go ahead and post this as well into the chat so that people can learn more about that as well. Link to learn more about understanding Android's vector image format VectorDrawable. Alrighty. So now let's go on. Now it's time to move on to actually changing the app icon. Download new assets. Next, download these two new assets that will enable you to create an adaptive icon for a tip calculator app. You don't need to worry about understanding every detail of the vector drawable files. Their contents can get auto-generated for you from design tools. 1. Download the IC launcher background file, the vector drawable for the background file. If your browser shows the file instead of downloading it, select File, Save Page As to save to your computer. Alright, now if your browser shows the code, you can do File, Save Page As, and then you can save it. Sure, you can save it to your you can save it to your downloads. And then you would do the same thing with the other one. So we're downloading the foreground and background composition of our new icon. So with this, you'll go to File, Save Page As, and then we would save. And then we have both of those now saved to our desktop. Alright, and now note that there are certain requirements on these foreground and background layer assets, such as both must be 108 dp in size. More details on the requirements here, or you can see the design guidance on Android icons on the material site. Let's see. Design guidance requirements here. Adaptive Drawable. I'm gonna go ahead and post this in the chat for more on adaptive drawable. Alright, and then what else? It is saying here, design guidance, Android icon. Alright, Let me go ahead and post this link as well, just for your reference, so that you can be more knowledgeable on icons, uh, material design, guidance, material design, guidance on Android icons. Perfect. Alright. Because the edges of your icon could get clipped depending on the shape of the mask from the device manufacturer, it's important to put the key information of your icon in a safe zone, which is a circle of diameter 66 dp in the center of the layer. The content outside of the safe zone should be essential background color, where it's okay if it gets clipped. Alright. And then, what is this? Designing adaptive icons. Okay. Alright. So, alright. So, says go back to Android Studio to use the new assets. First, delete the drawable resources that have the Android icon green grid background in the project view. Right click on the file and choose delete. You can check the box safe delete with usage search and click OK. Alright, so let me go ahead and do that. They want us to delete those two files. Alright, so let's go ahead and go back here and so it was saying the one, so this is the drawable V24. They wanted us, let me see. So first delete the old drawable recessions that have the Android icon and green grid background, the project view. Right click on them and choose delete. And so I'm checking because that it was saying inside the V24, I mean the V26 folder. So it says V26 here. Open up the XML files, for example. Okay. And then go, so down here it says, go back to the project view and look for where the drawables are declared. Drawable this. So where the drawables are declared. So where the drawables are declared is, so inside the min map, let's see, we want to go to where the drawables are declared. The drawables are inside the drawable folder, or the drawable folder. Alright, so here is the drawable folder, and so we have the background, foreground, and then there's a monochrome foreground, which, where is the monochrome foreground at? Drawable 24. So, but oh, I guess both of these are pretty much the same. So I'm gonna delete this guy here. Delete anyway. And I'm also gonna delete this guy here, which are inside the drawable folders. Alright, so we deleted those guys. And so now it probably wants us to replace them with the new ones. So let's go back over here. And it says create a new image asset. You could right click on the resource directory and choose new image asset, or you can click on the resource manager tab and click the plus icon and select image asset. Android Studio's image asset studio tools opens. Leave the default settings. Icon type. Launcher icons adaptive and legacy. IC launcher. So it wants us to go to our Android Studio here, and then it wants us to go to our resource manager. Alright, so was it like our resource manager was it says, so click on the resource manager tab. Oh, the resource manager tab. So should be on our left here. And then once we click on the resource manager tab, we go add new resource, image asset. All right, so we're here, and it said leave these defaults, and then with the foreground layer tab already selected, go down to the source asset subsection on the path field and click the folder icon. A pop-up pops up to browse your computer and select a file. Find the location of the new IC launcher foreground.xml. So let us go back to our Android Studio, and with the foreground layer tab already selected, let us go to the folder and let us select the new foreground file. And should be in the downloads, and this long name is it. I'm gonna open, and then boom, the foreground indeed changed. Alright, now probably it wants us to go to the background tab now. And the path is now updated with the location of the new foreground vector drawable. Leave layer name as IC launcher foreground and asset type as image. So let's go ahead and see if it's still that name. So let us go back to our Android Studio. Alright, so IC launcher background. Then we change that to image. Alright. And now let us go back here. And it says, next, switch to the background layer tab of the interface. Leave results as is. Leave defaults as is. click the folder icon on the path, find the location of IC Launcher background.xml file. You just download it, click open, and so they want us to choose the background for that one. So I'm gonna go ahead and choose the background one. So it's gonna be in my downloads, and then it's going to be the one called background. Then I'm gonna go to open. Alright, so the background is more of like a greenish color. Alright, and then find the location of that file you just downloaded, click open. The preview should be updating as you select new resource files. This is what it should look like with the new foreground and background layers. By representing your app icon in two layers, device manufacturers called original equipment manufacturers, or OEMs for short, can create different shapes depending on the Android device. As shown in the preview above, the OEM provides a mask that gets applied to all app icons on the device. This mask gets applied on top of the foreground and background layers of your app icon. Example of circular mask and square mask below. So on some devices, the manufacturer may choose to have all the icons be circular, or all the icons be square, or something similar. So that's why this method is to account for everything. So that's good. When a circular mask is applied to both layers of your app icon, the result is a circular icon with a blue grid background. And on Android, alternatively, you can apply a square mask to produce the app icon in the above right. Having two layers also allows for interesting visual effects because the two layers can move independently or be scaled. For some fun examples of how the visual effects can look, check out the blog post under design considerations. So design adaptive. Okay, I'm pretty sure I shared that one earlier. Under design considerations, because you can't tell in advance that what device your user will have or what mask the OEM will apply onto your icon, you need to set up your adaptive icon so important information doesn't get cut off. Make sure the main contents of the foreground layer, the service bell icon in this case, are contained within the safe zone and not clipped by the different mask shapes. If important content is clipped or appearing too small, then you can use the resize slider bar under the scaling section of each layer. In this case, no resizing is needed, so you can leave it at 100%. So there's a resize icon there. So, okay, here's the resize portion. So you can adjust this, but it recommends that you keep it. Alright, so that's what it looks like. It recommends you keep it at 100%. Alright, now click next. This This step is to confirm icon path. You can click the individual files to see the preview. There's also a warning at the bottom that some existing files will be overwritten, shown in red. That is okay because those old files were for the previous app icon. The defaults are fine, so click Finish. Verify all the generated assets look correct in the min-map folders examples. Let's go ahead and do that. Let us go ahead and go to our Android Studio. Then we're going to hit Next. And then we're going to go ahead and hit Finish for our icon. And then, okay, our new icon has appeared there. Let's go to our project. Then go to these map, and perfect. They have all changed. So that it's easier than you think to update the icon. You don't have to go through each and every single last one of these just to update the icon when you have, an adaptive icon. All right. And then perfect. Great work. Now you'll do more change. Move VectorDrawable files into V26 directory. Depending on the minimum SDK of your app, you may notice that the background asset is located in the Drawable 24 folder while the foreground asset is in the Drawable folder. Let's see if that is the case with us. Inside the Drawable 24 folder. So nothing's inside the Drawable 24 folder right now. Both of them are inside the Drawable folder. The reason is because the background asset contains a gradient which was available starting in Android 7.0 release, also known as API version 24, hence the V24 resource qualifier. The foreground asset doesn't contain a gradient, so that can go in the base drawable folder. Instead of having the foreground background asset in two separate drawable folders, move both the drawable files into the V26 resource directory. Since these assets are only used for adaptive icons, these two drawables are only needed on API 26 and above. The folder structure will make it easier to find and manage your adaptive icon files. So, alright. First, create the drawable any DPI-V26 directory. Right click on the resource folder, select new Android resource directory, new resource directory dialog will appear. Okay, so since these assets are only used for adaptive icons, these two drawables are only needed on API 26. The folder structure will make it easier to find and manage your adaptive icon files. First, create the drawable V26 directory. Okay, the drawable any DPI V26 directory. Alright, so drawable Right click on the resource folder, select new Android resource directory, and directory name will be that, and resource will be drawable. And so let us see. So here, what they wanted us to do is right click on resource, and then what was it? Right click on these resource, select new Android resource directory. So we're gonna right click on resource, and then we're going to do new Android resource directory. And then the directory is going to be called Drawable Any DPI-26. And this will be let me see here. So what is it doing? What did it just do? Okay, so it says first create the Drawable Any DPI v26 directory. Right click on the resource folder, select new Android resource directory. New resource directory dialog will appear. And then the resource type drawable, source main, resource type, drawable, and then leave default as is, and then hit OK. Let's try hitting OK. It says it already exists. New let me see. So new Android, was it Android resource directory, says new resource directory. Directory name is that. So we right click on resource folder, the new Android resource directory. So right click new Android resource directory. Directory name drawable, and then they also said resource type drawable, and then they said hit OK, saying alright exists, use different qualifier. Okay. So cancel. So there's updates to the browser. This might not exactly be necessary, um, because they're already both located in just one that's simply called Drawable, and that should be okay. Cause yeah, because sometimes the code labs are for slightly older versions of the IDE. So this part is not going to be necessary. So test your app. Test that your new app icon appears. Run the app on your device emulator or physical device. Hit the home button on your device and swipe up to show all apps list. Look for the app you just updated. You should see the new app icon displayed. Alright, as they are saying, let us go ahead and test this on our device. Alright, so it's a simple hello world, but let us minimize it and then pull up, swipe up. Okay, I think it's let me try that here. I'm swiping up. It's oh, okay. It was still loading. Alright, so let's go ahead and minimize it. Alright, you see our app icon there. And also, let's see if it will let me swipe up. Swipe up. Alright, we swiped up and boom, my application. So that's our beautiful icon that we set right there. So perfect. So that's how you change the app icon. And it's actually a pretty deep subject, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty it's a pretty easy process. So no, depending on your device model, you may see a launcher icon of a different shape, but nevertheless, it should show your foreground layer on top of your background layer with some type of mask applied to it. Nice job. The new app icon looks great. Adaptive and legacy launcher icons. Now that your adaptive icons works well, you may be wondering why you can't get rid of all the app icon bitmap images. You still need those files so that your app icon appears high quality on older versions of Android, which is referred to as backwards compatibility. On devices running Android 8 or higher, the API version 26 and above, adaptive icons can be used combination of foreground vector drawable, background vector drawable with an OEM mask applied on top of it. These are the relevant files in your project. On devices running anything below Android 8 but above minimum requirement API level of our app, legacy launcher icons will be used. The bitmap images in the bitmap folders of different density buckets. These are the relevant files in your project. Essentially, Android will fall back to the bitmap images on older devices without adaptive icon support. Congratulations, you have completed all the steps for changing an app icon. And also, for those older compatibility icons, you still don't have to worry about uploading a bitmap for each one, because it looks like it automatically generated the bitmaps based on the adaptive icon we switched out that was in drawable format. So Android Studio took care of all that for you for the backwards compatibility. All right. So, all right, guys. Um, so if you want to get the solution code, this is the solution code on number 7 of this code lab here. And if you're following along, we successfully changed our default app icon to our custom VectorDrawable icon, and we went through the process of doing that. And so the summary: place app icon files in the bitmap resource directories. Provide different versions of an app icon bitmap image in each density bucket for backwards compatibility with older versions of Android. Add resource qualifiers onto resource directories to specify resources that should be used on devices with a certain configuration, e.g. v26. VectorDrawables are Android's implementation of vector graphics. They are defined in XML as a set of points, lines, and curves along with the associated color information. VectorDrawables can be scaled for any density without loss of quality. Adaptive icons were introduced to the Android platform in API 26. They are made up of foreground and background layers that follow specific requirements so that your app icon looks high quality on a range of devices with different OEM masks. Use Image Asset Studio in Android Studio to create legacy and adaptive icons for your app. Learn more. So I encourage you guys to go over each of these learn more links for your own expansion, such as design guidelines on Android icons, adaptive icons, understanding Android adaptive icons, designing adaptive icons, which that would be pretty good for programmers as well as designers, implementing adaptive icons, adaptive icon playground app, create adaptive and legacy launcher icons, supporting different pixel densities, put app icons in map directories, VectorDrawables overview, VectorDrawable class. So that's great. Alright, guys. So that was the point of our stream. And lesson for today is how to change the app icon and work with VectorDrawable icons. And I hope you learned something new today. And if you want to continue to learn, and my goal is to get you on the path to become a pro Android developer. If you're interested in that, please subscribe to the channel. Also, like and comment on this video. Let me know what your thoughts are about this, and if you have any suggestions on what kind of videos you want to see as well. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, stay coding. I appreciate you all for watching. Have a great day.